Hi and welcome everyone, happy Thursday. It's release day here at Pink First Studio and our newest release, Homespun with Heart, is now available in the shop. And in this video I want to show you all of the products up close and just share a bit about this release, and of course you can also win something. So let's have a look. Now you can see it's quite a big release. We've got a lot of products. We've got stems, dies, stencils and press plates. And I'm going to divide this up into two parts. First up, we have this whole line here is called the Stitch Added. And this revolves around this idea of like stitching, handmade, crafting, crafting with heart and memories, nostalgia, all of those things. And you've got quite a few products in here. So each product has a different name, but they all start with the Stitch Added so that you know that these work together really well. And then I also want to point out that we have a new packaging design, as you can see. So we made the product name a little bit more visible up here. We put the SKU at the front as well. And so on the back you can find a mock-up as usual to give you an idea of what that could look like. And then we have coordinating products, meaning these coordinate in the sense that they either die cut what you stamped, or they are the coordinating stencils to ink blend and so on. And then you also have down here complementary products wherever it applies. So you can see here, this is not a product that coordinates in the sense that it die cuts the exact same thing, but rather it's something that works really well and complements that product right here. So first up, we have the Stitch Added thread spool. And for this, you have a 4x6 clear stamp set with 6 pieces. You have a coordinating die, and then you have a coordinating stencil with 2 pieces. Now, the idea behind this, or how this works, is that you have 2 dies for 2 thread spools each, and then you have 2 dies as well for the larger sentiments right here that say "From the heart for you" and "Thank you for holding everything together." So 2 really beautiful sentiments. And then you also have "Tied with love" and "Gentle thoughts your way." These are really simple, so you could stamp them directly on the spool or on a card like a sentiment strip. And then you can use these kind of floral elements right here to embellish your thread spools, as shown here. So for example, on this one, I simply die cut and ink blended my thread spool and then stamped with the same color those floral elements. And then you can also use the coordinating stencils to color in those stamped images as well if you want to. Or you can keep it really simple, do just a little bit of outline stamping, or even keep it plain and just add elements from the Stitch Added Notion story. This is a really fun add-on to these thread spools. So you have 2 different dies, one with 5 different sets of buttons, and then one with 4 different kind of threads and a needle. And you have a coordinating stencil with 2 pieces, so you get 1 piece to just color the buttons, and then 1 piece for the thread and the needle. And as usual, you have those alignment triangles to line up the die with the ink blended image. Or you could also, of course, die cut these from colored cardstock, for example. I think they are great for using up cardstock scraps, because you don't need a lot to just die cut 1 thread or a set of buttons. And another note, even though we updated our packaging, one thing we did not change is the magnetic sheet in between the packaging for our dies and press plates. So wherever you have a die or press plate with more than 1 piece, you will always have that magnetic sheet that keeps everything in place so that you don't need a different storage system. Now, one word about these dies. As you can see, these are pretty intricate. So they have a lot of thin lines kind of zigzagging and close to each other. So with detailed dies like this, we really recommend using a metallic shim for die cutting to get the best results. or just, you know, playing around a little bit with the pressure on your die cutting machine, because it also depends on the wear of your machine. But as you can see on these two cards, you can get a really beautiful die cut with these dies. So these are two of my card samples for the Stitch Edit thread spools and Notion Story. So on this one, I just die cut the thread spools, did a little bit of ink blending, and then added some buttons and some thread. And a fun little tip, so you could even use actual buttons. I think that would look really cute as well. And if you want to step it up a notch, you could even stitch these buttons onto your thread spools for a little bit more texture. Or you could pop them up with some foam adhesive like I did here, and then just cover them with crystal glaze or glossy accents for that shiny finish. And here you can see you don't even need to die cut the thread spools. You can also use the thread on its own. Also really fun look, I think. And our design team also created beautiful projects with this. So we have the Stitch Edit Makers Essentials. And this one, you might have seen Jody and me use this in our YouTube live on Tuesday, the sneak peek live. So if you haven't, make sure to check it out. I'm going to link it here. And this one is a stencil-and-die-only suite. So you have 3 layering stencils and a 1-piece die. As usual, you use the alignment triangles to line up your stencils, and then also to line up the die to create these beautiful elements that fit the theme that you can combine to your heart's desire with the thread spools, or you could also use them on their own, like I did here, or also on a card that I created in that YouTube live session. So here I just used the Makers Essentials pieces. I didn't use all of them because you get 10 elements, and the dies, hold on, let me just hold that up close. The dies add some really beautiful details. You can see all of these stitching lines here that really bring these die cuts to life. And the scissors are definitely my favorite part of this Makers Essentials set. Now, one final kind of set in the Stitch Edit line is the large spool. So you have a 1-piece die and 2 stencils to color in, or to color that large spool. And you can then use the Stitch Edit Heart-Made Details 4x6 clear stem set to embellish your large spool, or you could also use it separately. So you have some words and phrases that are more like something that would be printed on an actual spool, something like 100% cotton, for example, 100% handmade. But then you also have some that work great as sentiments or secondary sentiments. So you have a little gift with warm wishes, just for you, thinking of you, and so on. And then you have the Stitch Edit Heritage Lace die set. So this is a set with 7 separate pieces, as you can see. The great thing about these is that they are 4 1/4 inches wide, so they fit an A2 size card perfectly. And you could use them either on their own to just fill a card front and then use a sentiment from the Heart-Made Details stamp and stamp it on here. And I also snuck in a little thread spool from the Makers Essentials. Or you can use those heritage lace pieces and wrap it around that large spool. Hold on, let me just turn it around. And then combine it again as you wish. But you can see that beautiful detail in those lace dies. So it really gives this illusion, this idea of lace. And they're really beautiful. Now, as with the thread spool die, this is also a set of very intricate dies. So again, we recommend using a metallic shim. And also, when running it through your die cutting machine, make sure that you place your dies vertically versus horizontally like this to get the best results. And then also one suggestion or one tip that I found really helpful for getting all of these tiny pieces out without spending too much time, poking them out all individually. But with these pieces, if you take them and then just carefully run them through your fingers like this, kind of curving. So if you do that, I found that it pops out most of those pieces already, and then the few that are still stuck inside, I can just use like our dual tip embellishment tool and poke them out. Oh, and one more thing about those thread spools, I almost forgot to mention it. I already mentioned that I think they would look great with actual buttons attached to them, but you can also use actual embroidery floss and wrap it around to give it even more texture, and maybe to also get rid of some of your, or use up some of your embroidery floss, because if you're like me, you have tons of it. Now, next up, so this was the Stitch Edit line. Next, we have a new set of Sentiments-Only. And this time, we not only have a 4x6 clear stamp set, but we have a coordinating press plate, which I'm really excited about because I love using press plates for my sentiments. And then, of course, we also have a coordinating die. So this one is called Room for Joy, and it contains 8 different sentiments, all individual stamps. So you have things like, so glad we get to cheer for this, thanks for showing up with heart, you always find a way to amaze me, your kindness means more than you know, and so on. And then you get a coordinating press plate for each of these sentiments and a coordinating die for each of those sentiments as well. Sentiments like these work great with our stencil-and-die-only product suites where you don't have a sentiment. We have 2 new in this lineup of stencil-and-die-only and 2 floral editions. So on the one hand, we have Trailing Grace. This is a 1-piece die that gives you 3 separate die cuts and a 3-piece layering stencil. And with this, you can create these beautiful, flourishing, kind of oriental style blooms. So here, for example, I used a different color for each bloom, but that's totally up to you. And here I also used one of the Room for Joy press plate sentiments. And by the way, this card base was made using our heat-resistant acetate, because it's really nice and thick and sturdy, so it's perfect for card bases. Just one reminder, keep in mind that there's a protective film on both sides of that acetate, so make sure to get rid of it before you adhere all of your pieces onto your acetate card base. And then the other floral stencil-and-die-only product suite is the Bloomsmith Florals. Again, a 1-piece die, and this time a 4-piece layering stencil set. And you can use these to create different florals. You can combine them in different ways. So these are just 2 mock-up ideas of how you can use them, but you can also just, as I said, play around with it. Maybe also do 2 or 3 sets at once, die cut them all out, and then just mix and match, whatever works. And you can see all of these lines that the dies add, or the die adds to those die cuts, to really bring them to life and add some texture and dimension. So we have 2 final product suites, and they complement each other really well. So you will see them listed under complementary products. First, we have the Freshly Picked product suite. This is a 4x6 clear stamp set with 5 pieces. So you have those 1 stamp for the fruit and florals, and then 4 different sentiments. The die set includes a die for the illustrations, the 2 large sentiments, and for the sweetest thanks. And I love the large sentiments because they say, you make life sweeter and I will always pick you, which I think is really cute. The coordinating press plate includes the illustrations, the 2 large sentiments, and sweetest thanks. And then with the coordinating layering stencil, this is a 6-piece stencil set. You can color in those stamped or hot foiled or letterpressed images and create some fun florals and fruit. And our design team has also created beautiful projects with this. And you can try lots of different color combinations. I think this one is perfect for spring, especially with like the strawberries. It's just a fun set. And also in this idea of like homemade, handmade, cozy, you know, all of that. And then finally, we have the Cottage frames product suite. This is also a 4-piece product suite with a 4x6 clear stamp set with 4 different frames. So these are individual, and then a few smaller sentiments and one a little bit larger that says "You're so thoughtful." And then, hold on, let me start with the die. And a coordinating die set includes a die for this larger sentiment as well as for the frames. But the special thing about the frames here is that each of the shapes has 2 different dies. So the smaller one die cuts the stamped frame, for example, perfectly. If you use the larger one, you will just have a larger white outside, also possible. Or you can use them together to die cut an actual frame. So if you use this, the inside and outside die at the same time, you get this outside frame, or you can just die cut the smaller one or combine them to have different colored frames and so on. So the coordinating press plate has the same dimensions as the stamp, so it will give you the same impression, but just for hot foiling or letterpress. And then the coordinating stencil, this is a 1-piece, is there for you to be able to color in the stamped, hot foiled, or, you know, heat embossed frame. And there are so many possibilities for mixing and matching those, for, you know, using just the outside piece, just the inside, using an actual frame. Again, tons of ideas, beautiful inspiration from our design team. I think this is a release that has something for everyone. And I also just wanted to point out that we have quite a few products from past releases that work really well with this theme. And you might have seen them on my cards as well. So you have, for example, the embroidery hoop die from January last year. And this is perfect, of course, to combine it with like the scissors and the thread spools and all of that. So that's definitely a great set to have. Or if you already have it in your stash, it's a great time to dig it out and combine it with these new products. Another one is the decorative circles die from the same release. To me, it looks a bit like a doily, so I think it also works really well, especially with this kind of heritage lace. And then also we have a lot of cover plate dies. I just grabbed a few. They are not all of them. But we have quite a lot of cover plate dies that have this sort of stitching look, and even a few that lend themselves to add actual stitching. For example, this one, Bloomlight Stitches, or Petal Trellis, or then this one from last month, Petal Mosaic, also with these stitching lines. So if you have some of these in your stash, also a great thing to combine with this newest release. Now, if you stuck around until the end, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed a closer look at this new release. And make sure to leave a comment below letting us know which of the products I showed you today you are most excited about, or what you plan on doing with them. I think especially the Stitch Edit line is perfect for creating cards for your friends that enjoy like embroidery, stitching, all of that. And then we will randomly pick a winner from the comments who is going to receive the full February release. And also make sure to check out our blog hop with tons of inspiration and even more prizes. And then tomorrow we will have an Instagram hop with even more of all of the good stuff. So thanks so much for joining me today. Make sure to grab your favorites from the shop, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.